what that involved was Sherry White and myself meeting with a representative from State Ed. We had compiled all the documents that was delivered to Tom Burns' office, the district superintendent, Friday morning. It's well over 106 documents. It filled two 3-inch binders and a 2-inch binder with no room to spare. So that has been submitted. We do have another process that we have to go through. It's called the SEP process. It's a comprehensive educational plan process. I will be needing some board members to sit on that committee. I will also be seeking community members, parents, teachers, other district representatives. We have tentatively until January 31st until we hear otherwise, where that has to be completed. Actually, the sooner the better. It's nowhere near as involved as the other SQR process. It basically takes what we've done in SQR, builds on it, comes up with a plan of what we as a school, the elementary school in particular, what we need to be doing over the next 2 years. So again, any board members that want to be involved in that, I would certainly welcome Andy. And if anybody else would like to be involved in that, that would be great as well.
And you need no prior knowledge. This is a new process that runs Word Street.
How often are you going to meet on?
The document that we have to produce is a number of pages long, but again, the big thing is getting everybody caught up to speed in terms of what's already been done, the strengths, the weaknesses, the recommendations that came out of the SQR process, and then developing that into our plan. So it could take anywhere from, depending on who is going to be involved, especially community members and board members, we're probably looking at evenings. If people are amenable to it, we can also take a full day, maybe a weekend day, whatever the committee looks at. But it's probably going to be anywhere from 6, I would think, to 10, maybe more hours to do this. And again, it really needs to be back to Mr. Burns at BOCES no later than January 31st.
And he's working under the strict timelines that he was given guidelines. It's not like anybody waiting to do this.
And that's all that I have.
We took the Algebra 1A class today and divided it into 2 sections. Miss Shields, who was the teacher, approached me that she felt that the number of students, it was a 16-to-1 ratio, and there was a 17th student going to be added, new student transferred in, and she felt that it was a higher needs class than we could manage with one teacher with the 16 kids. So I looked at progress reports that indicated it by grades. I sat in on an observation, and even with the teacher's assistant, I was sitting back working with 2, and the TA and the teacher were floating around. It was pretty obvious that there was a need for a lower teacher-to-student ratio. So I looked at schedules and was able to take one of our math teachers, Mrs. LaPointe, and reassign her 2 math labs to Mrs. Burke, who's a certified math teacher in our resource room area, and split that class into 2 classes so that we have a ratio of 8-to-1 and 9-to-1. Algebra 1A is the first year of a 2-year algebra program, so these are the kids who struggle the most in math. And rather than wait to the end of the year and say, oh my goodness, what happened, it was pretty obvious that we needed to make a move now. So without much problem, we were able to make some shifts and get that over to there. And part of it is just because the resource room people are able to really manage very, very well how they service their kids, and the TAs that we have in here work very well with their teachers and can be trusted that I could use Mrs. Burke in that capacity to take math class. So that we did today. We sent letters home to those students and with the math lab students, letting parents know that their teacher assignment might have changed for that.
One of the things, Michelle, how many classified students did you have in that group of 20?
There's 16 plus the new student. I don't know. I believe, yeah, the new girl is a resource room student also. I would say all but about 3 of those kids are resource room students that get extra support, and their learning disability could be in that area as well. So it was just the right thing to do as far as kids are concerned at this point, and we were able to handle it. in-house without making any changes as far as needing staff from places that we didn't have staff. Senior privileges, I want to go over this because you might hear some disgruntled seniors over this. The process for senior privilege is that the students receive their progress reports, and they have to bring the progress reports to Melanie Manning, my high school secretary, and then we verify that their grade averages are above an 80. If they're above an 80 but they're failing in class, it's mandatory for them to graduate, then they don't get senior privilege. If it's below an 80, they don't get a senior privilege. And we had about 10 to 12 students who never brought their progress reports to Miss Manning by the deadline, and I made the decision that there would not be a grace period of, oh, I'm sorry, you forgot last week, so we'll extend it until you get it here. So about half the kids have senior privilege this next 4 or 5 weeks, and the other half don't. And I think that the decision I made before I even looked to see what students were involved. We just feel that if we're really preparing kids for leaving school, deadlines are reality. The deadlines were put out, they were announced, and to say, well, I just didn't realize, really doesn't fly in the real world either, and that our teachers at the senior level basically have deadlines and do not have grace periods for turning in homework late and papers late and that sort of thing. So I think that it was just a philosophy that we decided that we would stick with to the deadline, and perhaps that will have effect that next year if they do go to college, the deadline for registering for courses is a certain date, going in after is not going to turn anybody's head to say, I'm sorry, let me take care of you, because that's just not really the reality of it. So, and this is not the first progress report. They already went through this process one time at the end of the first 5 weeks, so that's the move we made. Winter Olympics went very well. Student government did an outstanding job. Terry Remington is the advisor. Kylie Averill and Mercedes Mackin are the co-presidents. And then every grade level, actually Nick Davison is the vice president, and then there are co-vice presidents at every grade level so that the kids are getting trained on leadership and taking over. The kids did a great job, and Terry does a great job leading them. Their next big task is our Spirit Week that we started last year, and that will be the first week of February, I believe, this year. We've been having an issue that we sent letters home before break, letting parents know that we were having problems with kids bringing or possessing weapons on school grounds, and a lot of the weapons are knife-type things that a lot of our country, outdoor kids carry with them, but it is against the law for them to carry a weapon onto school property. So I met with the 7 through 12 students of Miss Kelly, and we just presented the facts and the laws to them before vacation. We had three or four superintendent hearings over in the last week. The last one we finished today. Today I put together a letter that I worked on over the break, and I'm going to pass it around so you can see it. It's a weapons contract that we're sending home to parents, and it just outlines the process. The says that I or Mr. Burke have to expel the student, suspend the student for a full calendar year. So that would be if I expel them today, it ends January 2nd next year. They can, once I do that, they can request, or they do request, a superintendent's hearing so that it goes before the superintendent. They're allowed to bring a lawyer to represent them. And the superintendent has some flexibility to look at different criteria that are stated here in the letter: student's age, student's grade in school, prior disciplinary record, and a couple of other things that she can take into account and make a decision to overrule the length of time. So it doesn't happen at the building principal level. It happens at the superintendent level if there's a change in that. The only exception to this is students who are CSE students have to have what's called a manifestation hearing prior to their superintendent hearing. And actually, if the manifestation hearing determines that the student's disability was the cause of the problem, then it doesn't even necessarily go to the superintendent's hearing. It needs to be taken care of at the CSE level, that they make a change in programming. So that's the status. If the manifestation hearing, they decide that the student knew right from wrong and had nothing to do with their disability, then it goes on to the regular process of going to the superintendent's hearing and going from there. So this letter, the purpose was to just inform parents. We are saying we are going to tighten up, that we've made it very clear that it can't be a mistake that you bring a knife in your pocket anymore, and that it will be dealt with in a more severe fashion than what we've done at this point. And at this point, we haven't had any kids use them maliciously. That they really haven't. But that doesn't change the fact that if it's there, there's a chance that it could happen. And the parents that have been in are very cooperative. The kids that have, come forward have been very upfront and taken responsibility. So from that regard, the incidents we've had in the last few days, they've been handled very well from all different avenues, not just from the administration, but the student takes responsibility, accepts the consequence. I've had a couple of teachers, assistants who were willing to tutor at the spur of the moment. So a lot of those 3 kids before vacation were totally finished with the work before break. None of them came back behind, which was important to us to work with the parents, because they were working so cooperatively with us also to make sure that they didn't fall behind. So, that's all I have.
If you ever had a case where you had them, they were removed from school for a full year, about what would that cost for tuition? Home through?
We haven't actually looked into that, I guess, or figured it out, to be honest.
We do pay tutors how much per hour right now? $20 an hour, and they're entitled to 10 hours a week when they're out of school so far.
Depending if they're elementary or high school, up to 10
Right,
hours.
10 for high school.
Can we see a
Which
copy
really
of that?
isn't.
What's that?
Can we see a copy?
Yeah, your
should've
child
gone to
should be
elementary.
bringing it home either tonight or tomorrow. The high school kids, the homerooms are handing them out tomorrow. I don't know what Ron's group.
Most of ours are home today.
Michelle, was there still a clause in there where the kid discovers he has a knife? I know he's not going to go unpunished, I realize that.
No, we actually told every student, and we told this to the whole student body, that if you get to school and you realize, oh my gosh, I made a mistake, and you know it's there, you bring it right in and give it to us without any incident. Just you realize you made a mistake, bring it right to us. There won't be ramifications. We'll call your parent, we'll tell your parent. Now that doesn't mean that if you brandished it on the bus and then you remember it's in your pocket when you get to school, that's a different situation.
We've all had those, oh my God,
Yes.
statements going,
That-
it's fun to give the kid an out if he's innocent.
Yes.
And if he's innocent.
We did tell that to all of the groups that we met with.
It's the same thing if you find a gun cartridge in your pocket or your backpack. As you're going to gym class, you go to get undressed. Give it to a teacher automatically, you're not in trouble. And then just, deal forward.
I have a question on the content a little bit. You say weapon and use it as a very kind of generic term. Do they really know what you mean when you say weapon? Do they have a clear understanding of what you are classifying as a weapon?
When we did our presentation, I put the list of things that it said in the
That's quite the list they've got.
in the code of conduct. If you look at it, it does give you a pretty good picture of what they are.
And I guess
And actually the second part to that rule is if you took a pen that's not a weapon, but you use it as a weapon, then it becomes a weapon also, and it's the same category.
so there are other items that they can get in trouble for bringing to school, like an empty shell casing, for example. Okay, but it doesn't, in here it doesn't say anything about, if I was a parent looking at this, I may not know that my son can't bring an empty 22 shell case to school and use it as a whistle. I mean, I just want to make sure that there's nothing, they can't misinterpret this.
Everybody has a code of conduct, actually, that's given to them, that has a list of stuff in it as well. If you look at the,
And we did those, because Ron wasn't in the building that day, but I did grades 3 through 6, and that was one of the things we brought up was cartridges, because they had come in, and most kids throw them in right away, and not a problem. Most parents say get rid of them, they don't want them.
In one, my bus driver delivered back to the parent for me.
I just didn't, I hate to have a misinterpretation and,
I think our biggest concern is just the rash, so to speak, we've had with knives.
oh, sure.
And that was, I mean, a lot of people feel like, first of all, if they're carrying a utility knife for BOCES, that's okay. It's still not okay. They're supposed to be left at
It's a
BOCES.
tool.
A lot of,
They're
right,
gonna argue it's a tool.
right, and it is, but they, you know, they have a locker there, they have a place to leave them. It's the same thing, a lot of kids carry hunting knives, and that's a normal thing for a lot of kids.
That's something Wilson's gonna be incoming there.
We have met them, I don't know where else it's going. But it's, what more of the case is that some of the kids just like to have them.
Mhm.
The latest one, he was kind of showing it off. I mean, in his pocket, just because he thought it was cool, and it wasn't even looking. But times have changed, you just can't carry a knife to school now. I mean, you know, kids used to always have them. I think if you asked one point how many faculty have a knife in their back pocket, you know, a lot of men carry the little knives.